All right, before we get started, let me get one thing clear. This isn't my show, it's ours. And I'm honored to welcome you back to the All of Us podcast. We are back, which is so crazy to say because, where have you been, Nathaniel, right? Crazy. No, but when it comes down to the details, that's one thing I tend to focus on quite a little too much. I'd have to say the framework and composition of such things as a podcast, right? We're here and I'm overanalyzing like what in the world do I need to say? What is really going to hit and make an impact instead of just talking like I thankfully am now. It was a big portion of my learning process trying to figure out like who exactly am I trying to be, right? But then I had to take a step back for a moment and ask myself, okay, are you trying to be somebody you're not? Or are you trying to be you, but yet the greatest version of you? So that's where, thankfully, I recentered, realigned, and realized the fact of, okay, now it's time to go out and execute. So that's where we are now. Which, that being said, what have you been doing all this time, Nathaniel? Yes, I know. Crazy to say, but I've actually been building something so much greater than the podcast alone. So this is the podcast, right? Like this is where everything is going to be logged. We're still going to continue some of the previous programming, like that whole elemental series where we examine and really get to understand the elemental voices, all of the different great individuals, the different leaders that we're going to get to talk to from this point forward. But one of the things that I realized, in addition to what I've mentioned before, is we can't necessarily frame this entire series all on other individuals. We need to scope in and really get a gauge for what's going on in the present world as opposed to simply just hearing various perspectives, right? There's so many different awesome mini series that I plan to implement here within the podcast. So keep that in mind. Stay tuned. Super excited to share some of that stuff with y'all. All right, so let's go all the way back to the moment that really changed everything. It was January 14th, 2014, and a fellow seventh grader had come into the gym with a 20 gauge shotgun, fired 3 random shots into the crowd, and that's really the moment that quite literally changed the trajectory of my life and possibly many others. It is crazy to say, but it was almost like a full on death experience, yet thankfully just a near death experience. And I say that because of the fact that I lost 7 out of the 10 units of blood in my body. And during that time, I had actually lost every bit of life for approximately 8 minutes until first responders were thankfully able to enter. It carried quite a bit of weight on me for a while because over the next 2 weeks, I was medically sedated. And during that time, I had a wild number of dreams, which I'd love to get into a lot of those details even more with a lot of you, because some of you know a large portion of this part of my story. And there are also many of you who have never heard it before. If that's something you want to hear more about, please let me know. But all that to say, it comes back to the fact that I was able to heal and really come out of a place where there was so much darkness. And I am very thankful both because of like my faith and the support that I have from my family and the community that I had, I guess what you can say, like a way out. I had the support there. I had really everything I needed in order to be successful and to come out triumphant. So this is where we go into like the turning point of what exactly came of it, right? What did I decide? What was the rest of my life going to look like? I mean, yes, I do have some quite interesting lasting effects. I'm still completely blind in one eye, have approximately 2100 to 2080 vision in the other eye. Still just the pretty vivid memory of what exactly happened, the fact that I'm able to tell this story. Um, but what did I decide after that? So it's pretty crazy because of the fact that initially I thought I've got to go and be a doctor. Like, no doubt about it. The biggest controversy within myself was the fact of once I was getting into college and it was time to really hammer down into a lot of what I was studying at that time, I realized that that was not the place for me whatsoever. It came to a point where I was questioning, like, what am I supposed to do? But interestingly enough, outside of college, everything I was doing was all leading here. Funny enough, everything was leading here to this point where we are today. And my decision was the fact of I'm not going to allow something that happened to me define who I become moving forward. And that's when I truly stepped into a place where not only did I feel called, but I felt like I belonged. And I realized that there's something so much greater here that I'm going to be able to build. So, super great stuff there. Uh, but now, like, who am I now? Well, today, not only am I a survivor, but I'm an author of my own book, which actually tells a full complex, detailed version of my story, but I'm a speaker. I get to go out and share my voice in order to help elevate other voices. I get to be a voice for the voiceless. I mean, it's such an awesome opportunity. Significantly thankful of the fact, like, just filled with so much gratitude that I'm able to go out there and be a voice for those who can't speak for themselves. Now, when we drive back to the fact of like the All of Us podcast, what in the world is All of Us? Like, okay, Nathaniel, you're a pretty patriotic guy, love red, white, and blue. Um, Always showing the U.S. flag wherever you are, wearing it, whatever. But what does all of us truly mean? So, funny enough, I didn't necessarily think of this name on my own. This was actually a large contribution of both my imagination and some say like coming from the clouds, but just speaking from the perspective of the Holy Spirit. I realized whenever this name randomly popped into my head that this was something that is truly meant to be so much greater than what it seems. The All of Us actually has two meanings that collectively serve their own purpose. So all of us, right? I mean, there are so many of us that are impacted either directly or indirectly by gun violence in schools all across America. And that pertains to not only us as survivors, not only us as students, but parents, teachers, aka educators, administrators, school boards. Then you go into even further into your community, which include law enforcement, any other first responders, your mental health professionals, your medical professionals. I mean, anybody and everybody in the community. I'm truly meaning all of us. Like, every single person within a community is impacted in some way, shape, or form by gun violence within schools. And with that being said, I mean, it's going to take all of us to make a true difference to this problem that we're seeing across the nation, right? It's been happening for multiple decades now. And there's so many different solutions that everybody has, including myself. But what's truly going to stop the violence that we're seeing in schools? My honest answer to you, I don't know. There is so much data that we can dig into, so much data that I've dug into thus far. And there's so many frameworks that I've been able to develop this far in collaboration with various professionals and different efforts that I've done amongst myself with various partners that I've worked with. And I think we have a pretty solid start in alignment and in partnership with a lot of other organizations who are doing very similar, if not the exact same thing we are. but I think we're seeing a light at the end of the tunnel, which I am very, very, very thankful to say the least. Yeah, I mean, it's great. So now the fact of like all of us, right? We see the two little dots, US. This is, in fact, a nationwide problem, despite the fact of how many times some people like to say, oh, that would never happen in our community. I said the same thing. I said the same exact thing that would never happen in my community. And not only did it happen in my community, but it happened to me, in addition to all of the other students that had to witness what exactly went on in the gym that day on January 14th of 2014. So, with that being said, all of us not only signifies the fact that all of us across America and all of us within each of our own communities are being impacted, but it's also a nationwide problem. And thankfully, I'm here in partnership with you to see how we can be the change. So now we go into the fact of like, what does this show bring forward as far as like other voices, people we've never heard from, right? These can be different perspectives, like you had seen previously in the Elemental Voices framework of going and interviewing various students, educators, administrators, especially people like within the school board, all those type of decision makers. And then we get into policy where we're looking at potential city, county, state, and federal legislators. We can look at mental health professionals, medical professionals, first responders. I mean, the whole 9 yards. But then we also get to see various other types of miniseries, which I'm excited to share those with you here soon. So stay tuned. But how can we help the conversation continue past the headlines? All of these things that we're seeing each and every week, especially during the school year relative to gun violence in schools. How can we continue these conversations so they don't just stop at sending our condolences or sending our prayers or sending our best wishes and even the various types of like criticism that we send out toward like the system or various types of agendas per se. How can we continue these conversations so that not only are we being proactive instead of reactive, but we're able to go out there and take action instead of sitting back and watching? Now, I'd like to take a moment to really name the mission. There are so many different ways that I could portray this, but putting it into one sentence in the best way possible would sound something like putting a full force end to gun violence in America's schools by giving every single voice in the community a place to be heard. So, with that specific type of line, how can we put that mission into action? That's where the podcast comes into play, in addition to some great things I have coming to you on America's 250th birthday. I mean, what better day to share some great news on the expansion of this mission, right? Putting a full force into gun violence in America's schools by giving every single voice in the community a place to be heard. Wow. I'm excited. I can't wait to share this upcoming expansion news with you. Like, we've got so many things in store. Not only are we here relaunching the podcast, but July 4th, goodness, all I can say is stay tuned. All right. So, what is this All of Us podcast and whatever is being announced on Independence Day? Where's it going? So, the show is back for good. I can say that wholeheartedly and confidently. There are so many pieces to so many stories that come toward this collective mission. And I just want to be able to share that with you in a way that not only impacts the way you feel, but also impacts the way that you act. I mean, there's so many factors that play into gun violence. And so thankfully, I've been able to collaboratively figure out a way to not only track certain types of data, but also generate a full system. And if not a full system, then system revisions, existing system revisions that can actually play a role in being part of this solution. So that's where the podcast comes in. This is where other elements that we're going to be talking about more on the 4th really come into play, in addition to the next episode going into detail of what that looks like, what the scope of work consists of, really growing into something bigger than the podcast alone. And the fact that it's on July 4th, I mean, you'll be able to find out what that something is. Founding Day, mark it on your calendar. One cool thing as we continue to move forward from now onward is the fact that there's always going to be something here for you. We are going to continue, like I mentioned earlier, the Elemental Voices series. So this is where I'm getting to sit down with people in and all around these tragedies that we're seeing in schools, the students, the parents, the educators, first responders, faith and community leaders, voice by voice. So super cool stuff coming there. Now, when it comes to the content in between all these interviews, there are a couple of additional important pieces that will help to make it all come together. You'll get to hear the debrief of hearing my take on different types of school safety and gun violence news patterns, systems, everything you can think of when it comes to school safety and gun violence on school campuses. This is where the debrief is going to happen. Build Day. Build Day is really just getting a behind the scenes look at something that I've been building that you're going to get to see a lot more on. This 250th birthday of America. The other one that I would really like to tune into is the fact of Ask a Survivor. I mean, you send me any questions that you may have, and I answer them honestly. There is a wide range of questions that you can ask, and I'm excited and here to answer. So, with that being said, there's a few different types of series that we're going to be able to plug in here, but I'm also excited to the fact that we aren't bound by what we potentially limit ourselves to. These are simple things that we're able to integrate into this now awesome podcast. I'm like, let's go. Let's get it started. But in addition to that, like, let's continue expanding. Focus in on certain areas and expand where we see fit. So any other recommendations you have as well, drop them in the comments, send me a message, send me an email. You can reach me at nathaniel@nathanielspeaks.com. Let's get it started, y'all. I'm excited for this. And with that being said, please follow and subscribe. That way you can get notified about all the new episodes we have coming out, in addition to the great news that we have coming up on July 4th. The single most helpful thing that you can do truly is hit the follow button. Plain and simple. Like, comment, share, all the great things. And then additionally, mark July 4th on your calendar, despite the fact that you may not need to. In this element of celebrating July 4th, now I am excited to say that we will have something else to celebrate in addition to America's independence. So great stuff there. Now, with my book and speaking, if that's of interest to you, I will link the Amazon storefront down in the description. That way you can have access to my book as well as my speaking opportunities. If you are interested in either of those two, please click the links and take advantage of the fact that the book is yours, and speaking, we can literally take it anywhere across the nation. That's the goal. That's the mission. Let's get to work. Now, if you've got any questions, a story of your own, send it over as well. This show truly runs on your voices. Super excited to be back here with you guys. Can't wait for next week's episode, and I definitely can't wait for July 4th. Stay tuned, and don't forget that it's truly going to take all of us to make a difference. See you all in the next one.